The thing I wanted to talk about today is about 7, 8 months after Veronica died, I was in a group therapy session with other people that had lost their spouses. And there was a woman in there who had lost her partner 5 years prior. And she had come back to this place called Judy's House to just sort of touch base with her grief. And she told the story of how she had had a dream. And in the dream, her partner had come back. And she spoke about how she was grateful to see her. And at the same time, she kept thinking, there's no room for you in my life now. Like, we've kind of moved on. And I remember being horrified and outraged and extremely judgmental of that. I just kept thinking, how could you possibly say that? I would always make room for Veronica in my life, no matter what was happening. And then I think about how my life is now. And I have a better understanding of what she was going through. And what that made me think of is that every place we're at in our grief feels like it's the place we're going to stay. And we don't. Mm-hmm. We wind up moving to a different place, and it evolves. And there are some things that are still pretty constant for me. Like, I've never really lost a sense of confusion and guilt. Those two things have been with me for the whole journey. And there are other things that have sort of come and gone. Sometimes they come back, sometimes they don't. And obviously there's still some runway ahead of me. So I don't know how that's going to pan out. But this idea of how our grief changes over time has been weighing on me a lot lately. So I imagine that shows up a lot for you in your practice.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think one of the biggest things that I provide for my clients who are grieving is reassurance that it will change and lack of any kind of knowledge about when it will change. So it's
that's very encouraging.
Yes. So I think that piece of, like, you won't always feel like this, but you're probably going to feel like this for a while. But it will continue to change and evolve. And I know, as when I was going through profound grief myself, I had already been a grief counselor, but before that, but it's hard when you're in it. I needed that reassurance from someone who was patient and tolerant of my grief in its rawest form, to say, like, nope, this is where you are right now. It won't always stay like this, but we don't need to, like, rush you to the feeling better, rush you to the integration, right? It's okay to be in the space that you are. And I think that's where a lot of bereaved struggle is, because there can even be that intellectual knowledge that we will get to those places, or the concept is maybe, because sometimes you don't believe you'll get there, but like the concept of being in a different place of your grief makes intellectual sense, but emotionally you can't imagine being anywhere other than where you are.
No, and actually I remember very distinctly, and I know this is something you and I have talked about, is I didn't want to be anywhere else. Like,
right.
I embraced my misery in a way that, in hindsight, now that I've met other people that have been through a similar circumstance, other people haven't always approached it that way. Like, I dug my heels in. I refused to be happy. I refused to see any value in how my life could progress from where I was. And I think that some of that has to do with the emotional skill set that I had coming into this circumstance. But I also think it's important that I'm aware of that I say, hey, okay, that's how I dealt with it, and that's what I needed to do. And now I see things differently because I have this benefit of time and therapy and understanding and empathy, or kindness that I've shown to myself. And that's been valuable, because in my brain, the idea that it's going to continue to change is a double-edged sword. Is there a certain comfort to it? Sure. Because, maybe it won't always suck as bad as it does now.
Right.
But it also signifies more change. And change can feel like more loss.
Yes.
And that makes it kind of nuanced and complicated.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I think that when you're in some of the most intense emotional pain you've ever been in, or the most intense emotional pain you've ever been in, you want relief. And at some point you feel some relief and then you're like, whoa, this feels wrong.
Right.
So I think that ever changing, but again, how long, in what ways, it's so person dependent and unique. And it's not linear. So there's also that piece of, people talk about feeling like they've backslid. And I think, no, it's just a revisiting of some things, right? I
Right.
know it's nuanced, but that makes a difference.
Yeah. I
In
think,
grief.
yeah, as
Yeah,
people, we want we want to have a plan. It's like step A, step B, step C, and then
totally.
you continue onward. And grief, I mean, life doesn't really work like that. There are elements of life that sometimes in hindsight appear that way, but as we're going through it, it doesn't. And one of the challenges with that for me was that there didn't seem to be anything to hold on to. Like having other people's experiences was extraordinarily helpful, even though I was resistant to it in the beginning. And having an understanding of the psychology and neurology of grief was helpful. But when there is no plan, there's no ladder, there's no steps, there's no path, and everybody just keeps reassuring you that, yeah, this is kind of normal. This is how this feels. It sucks and it's horrible, and you go through this, and your feelings are okay. It is comforting to know, but then there's a part of my brain that was like, wait, what? Nobody knows what to do or how does this work? And I think there was a part of my brain that just always assumed that there was a plan, that there was a program to follow.
And I think this is bringing up for me, I've showed you that image before, and maybe you can integrate it into the video, but of the grief is like the big black ball in the jar, and people think that your grief shrinks over time. But actually, like if the jar represents our life kind of grows around the grief.
Yeah.
But the grief is always kind of the same in the sense of there's always longing, there's always pain, but as you grow your life around it, you carry it differently.
Right.
It doesn't take up all the space anymore.
Right.
Right. So I think there's this piece of like, as you and I are talking, I'm struck by that of we're talking about your grief changes over time. And yes, that's true, but I also think it's you and your life changes over time.
Right.
And so the way you carry the grief is different.
Yeah. And accepting that as a possibility that your life can get bigger than what it is, for lack of a better metaphor, is part of that acceptance of that evolution, that it's going to keep changing, and not knowing exactly where that's going to go is
right.
It's an added depth of acceptance that I really struggled with, because Veronica's death for me wasn't just about her dying. It was about a sense of impermanence and uncertainty in the world. And I'm sure I'm not alone in that. But it shook that foundation in a way that was really hard for me to accept, that there was just going to be more change coming. Even if it's good change or welcome change, it's still more change. And I think as humans, there's a certain amount of stasis and stability that we crave.
Absolutely. Absolutely. The not wanting your life to feel different or bigger or yeah.
Yeah.
So absolutely there can be resistance to all of that. It's going to happen, over time. I think that's the part of like, yes, time is one of the factors that plays into grief feeling different. But I think it's not the only thing. I think it's the type of support we have. It's our resilience and coping skills. It's all those pieces that will interplay. And that's why there can't be a one size fits all for everybody, because all of that is so unique and different for all of us.
Yeah, as much as we want that sometimes.
Totally.